Earlier this year, one of my Etsy shops had an almost 100K month of revenue, $97,343.49 to be exact, in one single month of August. Now, a lot of times, big numbers like these get tossed around, but you rarely get to hear about how it happened, why it happened, or perhaps most importantly, the lessons that can be learned from it. And there are some doozies in there. So for today's video, let's take a deep dive together on the hows, the whys, and of course the lessons behind that almost six-figure month. In case we haven't met yet, my name is Mandy. I got my start on the handmade side of Etsy many years ago and have since turned that experience into multiple six-figure businesses, including spending the last 2.5 years with print on demand. So, my goal now is to provide you with strategies to simplify the entrepreneurial journey so that you can start making progress and sales in your own business. So, let's begin with the how. Now, generally speaking, my listings tend to fall into one of five major niche themes: hobbies, professions, pet ownership, life milestones, think weddings, bachelorettes, birthdays, and life passions such as faith or advocacy or wellness or politics. Essentially, things that people get passionate about, right? There are endless sub niches that you can scale into with these, and I have seen my own success in various ways with several of them. What do they all have in common? They have the ability to create a deeper connection with a specific customer identity. And that is the key in creating products that buyers want, will purchase in a large marketplace like Etsy, and will keep similar customers coming back for more. From there, the how then was really about infiltrating and testing. You never know what's going to pop off and become popular. Sometimes I'll have a sense of what I think is going to be good just from studying and paying attention to things, which admittedly comes from doing a lot of learning and improving over the last 2.5 years. But ultimately, you don't always know for sure. You look for the clues, you take action, you try it, and see which listings get picked up right away in the algorithm. I attribute the success of my shop to the fact that I have an infiltrate, intensify, and adapt process. When I'm adding new listings, it's usually not just one or two here and there. If it's a new niche or one that I'm starting to grow, I start with at least 15 to 20. Why? Because it's a good place to start for collecting data. I'll monitor visits and favorites, look for early signs of sales, learn from those, intensify or double down on my efforts based on what I learn and what's working, and then continue to adapt and scale from there. I focus on just one to two product types at a time. In this case, Comfort Colors t-shirts was the one that I started with. And then if a design sells, I will scale it to a complementary product. For example, a sweatshirt or a tote or a mug. The scenario in this shop was no different. Now, it's a general shop by definition because it's got listings for several niches, and that's how I scaled and tested my shop when it was growing to see where I'd get the most interest. But my top performing specific niches, which again, by the way, fall into those categories I mentioned earlier, have their own sections and typically have at least a couple hundred listings in them. In this particular shop, I hadn't added new listings in a while, simply because I don't have as much time to put into it as I used to. But I was feeling particularly inspired earlier this year, so I started creating and listing in batches. This not only infiltrated these niches with new listings, but also drove some new traffic because new listings get a little boost for a short period of time when they're listed. This boost got my listings in front of the right customers that resonated with my designs and were searching for items in these niches. They started to sell, they started to get reviews, and it snowballed. I would also be remiss if I did not include that a big how behind this particular month was just the simple fact that I use print on demand. I'm able to design and test and list as much as I want, but I don't have to fulfill anything myself. Thanks to the integration in my shop between Etsy and Printify, which is my preferred print on demand provider. As someone who has run several handmade businesses over the years and has even attempted in the past to print apparel myself, there is no way that I personally would have been able to handle this month that had over 4,000 orders, including a single day high of 432 orders. Like, I wouldn't even have the space to house that much inventory, let alone the time to make it and fulfill it, all of which is very time consuming. Print on demand is what has allowed me to confidently scale my business while knowing that I don't have to worry about space or inventory or fulfillment. The majority of the orders from this particular month were also not personalized. So, literally, all I had to do on Printify was approve them in bulk, and away they went. Then we turn to the why this big month happened. And there were really three big reasons. Number one, designs that create a strong connection with your niche are king. We shop with our eyes and buy with our emotions. When you design with a specific customer identity and ideal buyer in mind, you are more likely to reach someone who, when they see your product, say, yes, I have to have that. That is the reaction that you're looking for with your designs. This is part of why I also rarely create general trend designs. Why? There's no connection to a customer identity in most of those cases. Instead, I infuse trends that I see into my niches and incorporate elements, whether it's words or graphics, that create that deeper connection. Sometimes I see the trends happening on Etsy with bestsellers, popular nows, or those little red words that we see in listings that indicate demand. Sometimes they might even come from social media or TikTok if I'm following a trendy influencer. I have tons of design videos where I show you examples of how to do this specifically with Etsy, so I'll make sure to include those in the link below for you. This connection, along with having a variety of designs for your customers to choose from, also increases the likelihood of multiple purchases per order and returning customers, both of which occur with pretty high frequency in this shop, even outside of this big month. Remember, for my top niches, I typically have at least a couple hundred designs. Number two, I happen to have some very enthusiastic customers share my listings in Facebook groups that they were part of. I could see the Facebook traffic in my stats, and I specifically had a couple people reach out and tell me that they shared my listing in their groups that each happened to have thousands of members. It was purely coincidental that it happened multiple times in the same month. Nowadays, you can't really do a whole lot of posting yourself in these Facebook groups because so many of them no longer allow self promotion like they used to in the past. But again, when you are designing for your ideal buyers and those ideal buyers love what they get, and then share it to a group of fellow ideal buyers in the same niche, you can really see some magic happen. I did not actively seek these out, but my listings getting shared frequently definitely played a part in this. And number three, timing is everything. Etsy is a marketplace, and we really only have a small amount of insight into how their algorithm actually works in real time. Sometimes listings and specific niches go crazy and take off, and sometimes they don't, or it takes a while. Remember, I've been working at this for almost 2.5 years, and while I consistently have profitable months, the magnitude of this was definitely different. I've had lots of failure listings along the way, and I've done a ton of learning along the way as well. You will never hear me claim that success happens overnight. None of us start out as experts. The best thing that you can do for your business is to keep going, keep learning, and not give up when it doesn't happen right away for you. And finally, the lessons to be learned, not just from a high volume month, but in general as you find success in business. Lesson number one: people will steal your designs. Several of my designs are now plastered across Amazon and Etsy and TikTok Shop, and I'm sure other places if I looked hard enough. This will dilute your sales after a while when you have bestsellers. It's the nature of something going viral and being in a marketplace where it's easy to see what is selling well. In a marketplace, things can go up really fast. Everybody wants a piece of it, and then before you know it, it's everywhere. Unless you pay to register a copyright on your designs, which can run several $100s, even if you report the listings on Etsy, people will submit counter notices, and there's nothing you can do about it unless you plan on pursuing legal court action. Now, normally I don't waste my time on issues like this, but decided I would pursue infringement reports on one design that went particularly crazy with pixel for pixel copycats, and it was a design that I had created completely from scratch. I ended up reporting more than 30 listings from 30 different sellers, most of them countered, and those that didn't messaged me with their sob story of, I didn't mean to, or I bought it somewhere else and didn't know. It was honestly such a horrible time suck. And I 10 out of 10 wish I had taken my own dang advice, which is that I prefer to simply make more, ignore the copycats, and outperform the competition. Most of the copycat shops are going to get shut down at some point anyway. They're too busy making copies and not creating anything of their own, and they're getting reported a lot. So some of them tend to take care of themselves. And honestly, I'm here for the long game, not the short wins. It really comes down to a personal choice when it comes to reporting copycats. But for me personally, the few sellers that did keep their listings down was not at all worth the effort and just sheer annoyance and time suck of the whole thing. So I will be going back to my usual ways of simply ignoring them. Lesson number two is a big one. Revenue is not profit. I have to pay Etsy fees, I have ad spend, and I have to pay Printify to produce the products. My profit is what's left after that. It's no different for my handmade business. I have inventory costs, I have shipping costs, I have website costs. If you're in a product based business, you will never be keeping all of your revenue. These are just big, flashy numbers. This is why it's so important that you set prices that have a profit margin that you are comfortable with. My actual margins for August were right around 20%. And this is actually about 10% lower than I typically like to run my margins. And that happened for a couple of reasons. First, I had listings selling in a competitive niche. Competitive niches typically carry a higher cost per click on ads, which I did have running on several of my listings. I eventually had to turn off a couple of ads on listings because they were no longer profitable keeping them on. In this unique instance, I also offered additional discount codes to a couple of people when they said they were sharing my items in groups. I leveraged the fact that people were actively sharing my products and in an audience that was specific to this niche. And in fact, I started incentivizing it. They basically became unofficial brand ambassadors and shared these coupon codes in the groups they were in, and they themselves came back to buy more too because the codes I was providing were higher than my normal shop discounts. Yes, this cut into my margins, but this was a captive audience that I had at that point. And so the volume more than made up for it. And I still had a $19,000 month in profit. Again, profit margins and how much is good is relative and can very much be a personal choice. But as one of my streams of income, I was pretty happy with this margin, and it paid for our family to upgrade our flights to business class on our flights to and from Latvia for Printify's Amplified event. 100% worth it. Lesson number 3: higher volume of sales equals higher volume of customer service issues. Sometimes this is just in the form of more questions from more people, and sometimes it's actual order issues. It is an inevitable part of any business, especially when you are outsourcing production. Now, I love using time blocks to help me manage my time, so I was blocking off about an hour every evening just to go through messages and respond and keep up with all of the follow ups. Remember, I run other businesses, I have a family, and I was also in the middle of preparing to travel and speak for the Amplified event. So I always have to be very intentional with my time, and this was no exception. One of my little time savers is that I have quick replies added inside SE messaging. Quite often, you are getting the same questions over and over and over again. And having a canned response you can simply tweak if needed for each person is so much faster than trying to craft something new. And then on the flip side, for order issues, the benefit of freedom from fulfillment is that while, yes, you still have to manage the interaction with your customers, you do not have to deal with the headache of the product itself. As someone who still also runs a handmade business, if something goes wrong, if it's lost, if it's damaged, it's entirely my problem. And if the customer still wants it, I have to take on the expense and time of making another one. With Printify, I simply reached out from the order screen, uploaded an image, or described the problem depending on what it was, and Printify took care of the rest. Huge shout out to Printify, who consistently handled every issue that came up flawlessly during this busy time. It allows me to focus on running my business while their printers are handling the products. Lesson number 4: be prepared for special requests and say yes when you can. When you have a design performing well and someone really likes it, they will often ask if it can be put on a different product. Being able to have a shop that operates on demand means that I could say yes more than I had to say no. Now, I initially had designs listed on my current top selling item, which is the Comfort Colors 1717. With Printify having such a large catalog of options, I was able to accommodate all of the different requests that came through. Can I get this on a long sleeve t shirt? Yes. Let me create a new listing for you. Can I get this on a sweatshirt? Absolutely. Here's a new listing for you. Not only is this great from a customer service perspective and resulted in additional positive reviews, but adding new listings for things that you know customers are wanting and asking for and ready to buy is a great way to start getting instant conversion on new listings. And finally, lesson number 5: virality is not the norm, especially if you are not actively marketing on social media. My sales are returning to normal levels for going into Q4, which, don't get me wrong, are still a great place to be and still profitable, but nearly 100K a month out of the blue are not the norm. nor was it even a specific goal that I had. When you see flashy videos promising huge sales or talking about viral moments like this one, remember that it can absolutely happen for you too, but please don't set your business goals based on someone else's viral moment. You can't control when and how a viral listing happens, so don't set yourself up with unrealistic expectations. One of the live calls that I do every month with my group is a planning party, which is all about setting specific and realistic goals for your business, such as a listing goal or a niche research goal, and then breaking those down into specific actions that are going to be necessary to reach those goals. Do not base your goals on something that you can't control. That is going to be the fastest way to create disappointment and feelings of failure. It's going to be your actions that drive results, not the other way around. Overall, my biggest piece of advice for you as you are growing your business and wanting to achieve bigger sales is to identify your ideal customers. Focus on fewer products until you get traction and continue to adapt and improve as you grow. Stop chasing those shiny objects. Start taking intentional action based on your goals and never stop learning. And who knows, perhaps you'll have a 100K month in your future as well. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you want to learn more about my strategies for thriving in your print on demand business, make sure you've got the notifications turned on for my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my free content. And in the meantime, be sure to check out my Simply Thrive Club membership, where we have a growing and supportive community of fellow print on demand sellers, along with live calls each month and deeper dives on the critical steps for success. Stay focused, my friends. Keep taking action and never stop pursuing excellence in your business. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad you're here, and I'll see you in the next one.